I got it. There we go. Everybody on your best behavior. So today, thanks everybody for coming. This is our 30th call actually for the Emerging Centers track of the People Network. Today, the conversation is going to be around the cultural fit between research and enterprise IT and other departments and groups. Our steering committee kind of put this together, and you can read here, different questions, which I sent out in the email that we're going to, Kirk Ann, who's on the call here and on his video, is going to be our facilitator today. So he's going to do a poll of some questions, and then we will move into some discussion, or I'm not sure if we're going to discuss after each question or whatever format you want to use. Kirk is fine with all of us. So I think, having said that, we'll just go right into this unless anybody has anything that they would like to discuss before we start. If we have any new members today that have not attended any of the People Network calls or Emerging Centers calls, maybe you can raise your hand or introduce yourselves. Oh, J. Ray Scott from Carnegie Mellon.
Hi, relatively new to the group, so I'm here and anxious to hear what we have to say.
Good. I think I've met you before on other locations.
Some
Okay.
of you, yeah, I've worked with some of you when I was at the Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center, the PSC. A few years ago, I moved over to Central Computing, to the IT department at Carnegie Mellon. I'm part of the evil empire now. That's
I was gonna
Central.
say, yeah, you'll have some things to share with us then.
You'd be glad to.
Anybody else? I saw some other people pop up. No. Okay. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to talk about today? All right. And as always, if you have information or ideas regarding future calls, please let anybody on this, on our steering committee or myself, and I sent out an email this morning, so people should have my email address, or Rich Nepper from Cornell, who's my co-coordinator, or anybody else in the People Network. Just if you ever have any suggestions, we're happy to hear them. There is a Slack channel that we do monitor. So if you have other information that you'd like to talk to us about, we're always kind of paying attention to Slack channel as much as you can. So there we go. All right, Kirk, it's up to you.
Is the screen sharing?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So
Where
who's strongly supporting us?
did you
I
put
think
a
it's a
link?
multiple
Oh, so you put
multiple
the poll, I'm sorry, but you put the poll in the chat window.
yeah,
I didn't even see it.
yeah.
I'm like, how are people known to do this? All right, I'm gonna mute.
It's also on the top of the screen part. Oh. So it appears faculty don't like us.
Well, in my case, the faculty don't know anything. I mean, they don't know what RCD is.
Okay.
I can't
Never
answer
read their
any of these.
email either.
Oh, it's a communication thing. Yeah, I was gonna say, can we do multiple?
Yes, I do believe you can do multiple,
I had a hard time.
unless it's saying no. I don't know.
I can only, once I selected one.
Okay, yeah.
It said only one.
I tried to make it multiple choice, but it appears not. Looks like we're mostly IT oriented with a bit of research. We'll have to do a survey, like a survey next time. This was to do a dynamic interactive thing. So anybody have any comments on what we're seeing here?
I'm jealous of whoever's CIO is supportive of them.
I think that's the interesting split, right? Is some are, some aren't, and that's one of the interesting dynamics. We have another question along there. So, any other answers, questions? Sort of happy with this. Go on to the next question. Oh, there we go. Yes.
The other thing about that previous question was strongly,
Ah.
right? I wouldn't put strongly in there, and then you might get different answers altogether.
Right, yeah,
'Cause I
So-
can't, there's nobody strongly at my institution.
right. So that's one that I converted this from sort of Google form of like, for each one, do they strongly advocate,
Mhm.
don't care, fight. So,
Well, and this input will be good. We can just make this, I know this has been done from other organizations within our CD groups that kind of get these ideas, but we can send out a follow-up survey with some of these,
Yeah.
some input from this today,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
I think, what we also want, this helps us to define what we're doing in this community and help us figure out, where we need to go and what information we need, like Paula, if you need to have communication tools, to send out so that faculty can hear about you and understand what it is, or those kind of things. So that's really the goal of doing something like this, so that we know kind of what we're looking at. So thanks for all of your input. We'll make sure. And if you want to type some things directly into the call document, that's always useful too. I'll be taking notes also, but.
that's definitely encouraging, I think, to see, three expanding, growing kinds of things. Yes. We decentralized and full of internal competition.
So you're using RCD as not research career development, but research computing and data, right?
Yes, yes. Sorry, I should have put that there. Yes. Fortunately, I didn't have a good intro thing to sort of set the tone. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one that emerging as a distinct identity from conventional IT, where actually I'm working with the conventional IT, or what we're calling commodity IT, to differentiate, because the provost is telling our CIO, it's like, oh, we have a problem with research computing, and it's because they can't print, and that's not what we do. So, yeah.
I think that's one of the tenets of, good project management, is you define what's in your scope and what's out of your scope. And it's the same with research, computing and data services. And Jonathan, who spoke to us, I guess, it's been a couple of months ago, talked about, do we want to be everything to everybody? And his answer was, kind of to think about it. And I've had to think about it a lot since then. And I think that my answer now is no, because you can't be everything to everybody and do it well. So anyway, it's
Good one. Thank you.
interesting.
Good. All right. Well, very
I think
cool.
this kind of supports our thought to one of the other questions that are comments, and I guess I can turn my video on. One of the discussions we frequently have is, what does it mean to be emerging? And these words, I like the winky smiley face, but the words that are brought up here, I think are kind of, bring that to light, what that kind of means, like centralized, decentralized, trying to be one big place. So this is great.
All right, I'll switch on to the next question here. What advantages do you have in your RCD community? I was thinking of what makes your community distinct, or, I would answer collaborative, right? Is that at least at my institution, I work with the folks in the library, I work with folks in departments. So in my community, I think we have a good, networking or mesh model of things. Yes, and very supportive faculty. That is one. That's one also is that I think we have a number of people who see the value in those things. Oh, that's convenient. Having a national center on your campus is nice.
The trick is taking advantage of it.
This is true. This is true. Yeah. Nothing like a green field advantage.
Yeah, this is Rick Tuthill. I just submitted that, and talking with some folks at PERC, I realized how lucky we are to not be coming into the fortress environment.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definite, politics to be developed, and, developing the coalition of the willing kind of thing, and helping to move together. And that's where in my environment's a little bit of, some that are just off on their own, and they're just going to stay on their own because that's the way they like it. But to help coalesce support and effort.
Yeah, I think that's going to be key on our campus too, because it's historically been very distributed. So we're trying to build a central function. And I think a lot of it is not going to be necessarily hiring and bringing in new people. Just let's connect the people that are there. Let's build the community. Let's build the trust. Let's build the resources. Let's talk.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that I've been talking with a lot of faculty on my campus is every one of you who are going up and asking for your own supercomputing, or your own GPU cluster and whatever, that's distilled across 500 requests. But if we come together and go in and ask once for more than what each of us need, we're probably going to get more of what we do need. All right, so I'm going to flip it to the other side of the equation, which is what challenges and disadvantages, which some people already listed as, understaffed, underfunded. Oh, coming up. Yeah, especially these days. We just had another key IT person in a different department just got poached. Yeah, I'm facing that one too, trying to explain to my bosses what research computing and data services mean. Well, and I think to the actually needs, it's an interesting sort of dichotomy of sometimes they're complaining about just central IT or commodity IT support. And because we are inviting and helpful, some of that sometimes splashes back on us of, well, can you help me with my printer installing Office? And that's sometimes a challenge. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that one goes both ways of using enterprise IT for research computing and vice versa. Oh, yeah. Compliance and all those security regulations.
So this is Rick again. I think I have a unique, well, not unique, but a different perspective on this because I actually spent most of my career on the production IT side of the house. So I'm currently in an interim role for research computing director. So it's kind of learning what's different on the research side and understanding that, yeah, the demands and the speed is different and the needs are different. And how do we try to meet these? But I'm lucky enough to have the connections and the relationships within enterprise IT to actually get stuff done. So yeah, I could see if it's a really distinct line between the organizations, that could be a huge challenge.
Yeah, and I think in an evolution, so in my previous job, I involved from the production IT to the research. And I think the challenge is the uniqueness that comes of I need this really weird piece of software or hardware to interface with this thing, which really goes against the standard sort of like commodity IT or enterprise IT of we get you your network, we get you email, we get you web services. Right now we're actually having a issue with researchers who need to do like web services, but asking the enterprise IT web services folks, and they're like, well, Drupal. And Drupal is a great hammer, but for brain surgery, not so much. Uh, and this is where it gets into that very uniqueness of research, also of the sort of custom built things. All right. Well, I think we're gonna pop on to the next one.
And I would say, Rick, that probably I would almost say the majority of us came from, well, probably not the majority, but a large amount of us came from enterprise IT and did the same thing that you're doing, kind of started with it or, kind of got started, or it's probably 50-50. We have a lot of scientists that start this too, but I would say there is a lot. And I like the discussion that happened in chat here a little bit about IT, enterprise IT and research IT. It's priority and everybody's kind of undersourced, but I do think there's definitely it's funny because when people talk about HPC, they talk about, what is it, pets versus cows. But it seems to me always that enterprise IT is always thinking about cows, and we're always in research IT thinking about pets, even though within our own, we try not to do that. But it's a different world between the two.
Well, and I've gone with an analogy of cars is the fleet, the enterprise rental fleet versus the Formula One or NASCAR, right? Is we want something to go really fast, but it almost needs to be custom built for some of these things.
And then I like Alex said, maybe institutions have yet to realize data analytics is the same in enterprise and RCD computing. So there may be no difference between the two in the future. I'd say tools wise, probably not, but support, I don't know. That darn Alex.
Yeah, well, we are definitely
Think all the
fighting.
time.
Yeah, we're always thinking, well, and we're starting a data lake initiative, and we're saying, well, with student financial aid, you need 171 support. So, and guess what? We also have researchers who need 171 support. So let's combine this. And I think it's dangerous when if we try to, if that's not being aligned, because I think due to we're going to be short-staffed. We can't duplicate and create redundancies. We should be trying to align things. Oh yeah, data management and preservation and archiving and curation. Yeah, a big one for us too.
Rick, again, we have a new dean of the libraries that we're going to be engaging with who is very data oriented. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but haven't had the conversation yet.
Yeah, and luckily I had a friend in the library that I worked with at my previous institution. We set up meetings because the libraries tend to work with faculty on doing their research, but in a different way. And luckily we were able to start conversations and say, well, we share a lot of the RCD emphasis on D of, the metadata and, all those things, the curations and things like that. So, yeah. Very good stuff. All right. Oh, nice. Yeah, that's going to be a big one.
Yeah, I'm impressed that somebody has 3 positions that are open, which is good. And I think just even in the 3 years that I've been in this community, we went from people saying, well, I'm trying to get, nobody will let me create a position, to we've created positions and we can't find people to fill it.
Yeah.
Fill them, which is better than, before. I mean, really, when I first started, everybody's like, we can't get funding for positions. And now we see throughout our communities, postings every day of new positions, which is great. But then that leads us to how do we create a bigger workforce and
Yeah.
quit
Well,
just
I
hiring
think
each others.
Yeah, and the difference between soft and hard funds of, buying somebody for a project and then having them poof disappear at the end of the funding, versus putting in creating the budget lines so that we're always going to have a good thing there.
I'm curious about the decreased barrier of entry to HPC and large scale storage systems. Would whoever put that, would you mind? I'm just wondering if that's like using things like open on demand and those kind of things.
Yeah, that was one that I put. Open on demand is certainly a part of the strategy we're using there. We're also, as we've been designing some new systems and speccing our requirements, we're really including more of that input from what researchers like to see, not just the core requirements. We really did that on the storage side of, we often would look at something that's primarily, a Globus target, something that's highly scalable, and we certainly have those requirements, but we also scoped in things like something that can be mapped as an SMB share, and just really taking that input from researchers on what makes a system easier for them to use in addition to what is technically required.
And we're starting to face the students who have never used anything other than an iPhone or an iPad, all graphical interface, and then it's like, okay, we want you to submit a batch job, which is so 1970s, 1980s
Mhm.
skill set. And that's where we're actually, I just hired a new facilitator, and we're really hitting that wall of having to teach them Linux commands and things like that, and batch lines. And I think this is one where the next question is, what are we looking at in 3 years? And I think some of it will be developing that easier software for doing science, so that we can get uh, our researchers onto the machines without making them suffer, um, so that they can focus on their science, not on the
Mhm.
computing part.
So we're looking at research desktops and I can't think of what the name of the other thing is, but that kind of a world to provide those. Maybe that's something we talk about at one of our future, but it's the first time I've seen anybody say about storage, needing help using storage, but it's true, and especially as now we have so much more storage, and right, they might map a drive. But if you ask them to do anything more than that, it's like they just want to put it on their thumb drives. So I don't know that that's been a big conversation about how we make storage a lot easier to access.
Well, for us, it's how do we get the storage to the right place? So we're looking at cloud solutions. So do we create using Ceph to connect to S3 object stores, or using Samba and SMB, using NFS, using Globus? What are the ways we can get those things?
Alex has his hand raised. Would you like to say something, Alex? You can chime in anytime, but I appreciate your.
Hey, yeah, can you hear me? I'm on my phone. It's
Yep.
kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
I just
yeah.
have to. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
I have to say with what you said. If so, I've been doing genomics for a long time, and the more we make things a turnkey and graphical based, the harder it is to do genomics. So when you make graphical desktops and you pull away from the command line, you're making it harder for the researcher to get their job done. You have to learn the command line. All my courses are command line based, so you actually have the freedom to do whatever you want to do. And once you lock it into a GUI, you're really are limiting the power of the genomicist, at least. Probably a lot of data intensive computing people. I just
Right.
have
Well,
to say it.
Yeah, well, and I would maybe modify it to providing the tools that they need. And in genomics, you're dealing with text. You need to use command line to do your work, but other things of like graph theory things and all that turns into more graphical. So I think it's finding the right tools for the right, the right purpose. And I think that's one where some, like hard coders and genomics, all about the command line, and actually then teaching them the command line and showing them how to do that. But then for other folks, it's doing it in a visual way. And so I think that's an accessibility issue of how do people work, and how can we get them to that point of being able to do their work in the flow that they do. So, and that's a interesting space to work in. Mhm.
Yeah, one size definitely does not fit all in our world. I'm still sad when WordPerfect took away all the ability to to
Edit
use that.
codes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those were the days where
Yeah.
you could actually go back in and go, yeah, no, that's not what I want.
Yeah, I didn't want a paragraph there. Uh,
Yeah,
These are great. These the ones that are listing here. Oh, I was gonna ask you, Kirk, do you have this saved, or is it only gonna just be on the video, do you think?
I will extract it out of Polar.
Oh, okay,
Get
okay.
it into the call doc.
That's great, because all these things I can see as future topics for us. I know we have some people, we've had some of them before, but when we always have new people coming in, I think we always have, an hour is never enough time to talk about these things, but You know, the in-lab and specialized systems, I mean, that's becoming a big thing for people, especially when storage and data has to become more available. We're seeing a lot of classroom increased use on our HPC, and there's ways to do it well, and there's ways to not do it well. And I think that's a really good one to have.
And you have researchers complaining because, oh, the students are using up all my valuable GPUs, like, but we need them to learn how to use them. So,
Yeah. So what do you do?
interesting back and forth.
And sustainable funding models, we've talked about them, but we just need to keep talking about them so that we can all learn from each other and how we can make our teams stay, not lose sleep at night.
Yeah.
CUI environments, of course, we're all working on that too. So
Oh, God, yes. Right.
very
So,
good.
on the flip side, critical needs that you see for the next year. Money, people.
Mhm.
Oof, ouch.
Yeah, I have an open search right now and I have one candidate.
Oof, ouch.
Yep.
Yeah, those are hard. Because these are sort of high end. For some parts, it's a challenge.
I filled it last year and then he stayed for exactly 10 months. So I went to industry. So that's,
Mhm. Yeah, because that's the hard part, right?
Oh,
Because you get them real good, and boy, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, we can't fund that.
I was in that
That's why
pilot.
I've implemented a quitting freeze in my team. You
The
can't
what?
quit. You can retire, but you can't quit.
I'm starting to actually seek out retired faculty members, and we have a couple of that are interested. The 1 year of central funding to build raw capabilities, improve value and demand. I was in a similar position that we had a pilot and we had to prove that people would use it, which they did because it was free, but now we started charging for it and nobody wants to use it.
Mhm. Got to find that sweet balance, right? That fine balance.
Yeah, that's tough. 1 year is hard too, because it takes you 6 months to let people know that you're even there.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
this, Rick again, that was my comment. And we have an interesting set of circumstances going on that people have been using HPC, just not our campus HPC. It's been a system HPC, and that's going away.
Mhm.
So we're
Mhm.
trying to build campus level capacity, and there's a lot of demand for it. It's just we don't yet have the resources and people. So it's
Mhm.
going to be an interesting dance.
Yeah. And for me, I'm coming into my 5th year of my cluster. And so now it's the proof that it was used, right? Proof that we saw benefit. And we had a previous one on some of the metrics you can use of, number of graduate students graduated, papers and things like that. Proving the demand is quite an interesting space.
Yeah, we haven't even really started thinking about it because we're still in crisis mode.
Uh-huh. Yeah. All right. Oops. Hang on a sec. I go back. Oop. Oh, sometimes you don't want the attention of the cybersecurity team because then you have to install all the intrusion detection systems on your cluster, and that's not necessarily a fun day. We're trying to get out of some of that.
But if you need them to help you set up your systems so that they're secure, you know, it's kind of, it is a catch-22.
Yeah, and that's where where I'm working, we're working through creating the shared responsibility matrix of, you know, I can't tell which researchers have access to which data. That's on the PI. However, I can set up the controls for the technical controls. But when it comes to an incident response, that's really not my bailiwick. It's our security teams. And so I've been working with our information security office to sort of slice out what parts. And if you look at the 171 controls, it almost turns into a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, where the PI who's asking for the data and causing the problem of starting that problem, they have to do like what data that you're bringing in, who's, you know, what software, what, all those things. We could take care of the IT part, but then the information security part of, you know, policies and that kind of stuff, that's on the ISO. That's not me. Or reading the logs, which is the one that's the interesting one of, well, I don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. Who wants to do it? All right, I'm going to skip over the 3-year one, because we're getting close on time. So, how's our relationship with RCD and central IT? Which I was central IT, but I just got spun out. So I'm not sure. Trying to maintain a good relationship. This is our word cloud methodology. Love to hate them. I'll have to unbundle the answers. Looks like in most cases it's good. How about the RCD support in libraries? Some would say they're the same. And Ultron.
Just wanted to give a comment on the last section with central IT. I don't know how unusual our situation is. We're a unit within central IT, and we are very closely integrated with the other other groups here. For example, our HPC networking is actually managed by our enterprise networking group. So I was just kind of curious to see how common that type of an arrangement is. It's worked very well for us.
That's the model we're moving towards. So good to hear that it's working successfully elsewhere.
Could we do a show of hands of how many people are in the central IT organization right now? I don't know if this is going to work. You
Yes,
can
yeah.
do the reactions if you don't want to turn on your video.
Yes. Ish.
I don't know if you can do reactions. Thumbs up, maybe? I don't know. Oh yeah, you got hands. Oh, Jay Shree's 50-50. That's always fun to be 50-50 of anything.
Mhm.
Split loyalties.
Yeah.
Jeff, Claire, Fred, Jay Ray.
Mhm.
Quite a few.
All right, we'll go on to the next one. Let's see. How about RCD support and the administrative folks of grant research, sometimes called sponsored research, vice president of research. Ooh, good.
Like Claire asked a question in chat, and I think I like that discussion because yeah, I mean sometimes it's hard to get to the CIO maybe, but did you want to ask your question, Claire? Or I can if you want.
Well, I guess I was just wondering if anybody does outreach to central IT, and I guess I'm not, Gregory said something about it being the main responsibility of the director to outreach to explain to CIOs. And I guess I'm not talking about dog and pony shows to the CIO, but when you're trying to work with the central IT as a whole, and they don't really understand RCD at all, and there's such a bigger group of people, right? Because they do mass things like campus email and websites and networking and infrastructure. So they look bigger than us, but actually when, we're talking about the money, the extramural funds that you're talking about, we have a bigger impact on the direct mission of the university. And so I'm less, I guess my question is not really about dog and ponies to the CIOs or to leadership specifically, but how do you do that grassroots educational piece to central IT?
Yeah, I think the challenge that I've had in my previous institution and current one is, what do you guys do? And I think that's the challenge of how to, because we're the inquisitive group, the curious group that's, being a jack of all trades in all kinds of disciplines, not necessarily knowing what's next, and having to do adaptive work, whereas the central IT likes to plan things out and have projects and have defined services. I think RCD is sort of that, the concierge model is how it was explained to me when I started here from the previous CIO, but it's a little bit different than that too. It's, I'm not sure exactly, but it is a culture thing. We need to figure out some buzzwords or the translation matrix to help, because like high-speed networking, both of us need it. Massive amounts of storage, both of us need it. It's how it's used and how it's managed, because the other thing is we tend to be more agile and adaptive to our work, where putting in change management and putting in our process change controls 3 weeks ahead of time. So it's a bit of a culture space to navigate.
Gregory, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I could try to. Well, first of all, we are in Canada, right? So we are just kind of observing and learning from CARC, and it is very good source of some good language and good examples for us.
Good.
But Claire saying, how do you reach to enterprise IT? And I think you go right to the top and you use leverage of your VPR and your researchers. So we have a system of committees, luckily, that top of IT, like there is director of operations, CIO, VPR, somebody from VPR, like AVPR partnership, and the representatives from faculties. And the representatives from faculties, like the actual researchers that know our value, they sort of explain to CIO this value. Because when you start to work with enterprise IT middle management layer, basically you can't. It's just forget about it. You will be in turf war with infrastructure manager. We have matrix org, we have infrastructure development with infrastructure maintenance, we have planning and governance, which does the project management type of thing. This is all, you will be in the turf war, so go straight to CIO and go through researchers, because the university, at least if you are in a research intensive university, it will help. Now, I've seen comments about people that we are part of IT or we are having good relationship with IT. Let's say IT manages global structures here, but try to make them change. Let's say from campus network, you want Globus working and they want Chinese firewall that prevents it from working. So unless you try to bend IT your way, which sometimes you have to, you will have good relationships. But at some point, you will have to insist that your needs are not the same. Thanks.
Yeah, so governance is a good way if your IT group has that built in, that's great. Another way that I did it was I created a cyber infrastructure kind of team, which it was part of writing the cyber infrastructure plan. So I got the network guy, and I was in central IT at the time, so that helped. But I got all those people and said, you guys need to help write this. And then we just kind of met frequently. Now, since I've moved out of IT, that's been a little harder. But then we had a technical advisory group where we would meet at a bar on campus. And I would just talk about what we're doing. And that was pre-pandemic, but that was really successful. And people really like that. I've been thinking about doing that again, but the bar on campus never reopened, so it makes it more difficult. But
It's time for the data center.
Yeah.
Don't keep the eggs cold. It's liquid cooled. It'd be
Right.
fine. All right, I'm gonna skip over a couple of the ones that we had in the list to not that one, and not that one, and how about that one? And this is one to the CARC capabilities model, to say, is this just in your space or is this institute wide? Because I think that's a kudos to the new capabilities model. If you haven't seen it, the new round is out. And this is one where I've been at my institution for 3 years now, and the hard part is that I still don't know all the pockets yet. So there is actually possibly more support that I don't know about. But I am working on trying to get out there and finding the pockets. So, but looking like a lot of small groups. Yeah. Well, that might be an interesting survey, how to figure that one out of dedicated or, full on commitment versus the partials and
Put out an email to everybody on campus and say, if you support technology for research, come and eat this pizza, drink this beer.
exactly. That's right. And then
Those
everybody
people all
comes out.
want to be part of a bigger community too. I found, they like to be connected with somebody else because they feel like they're an isolated person, in a department.
Yeah,
Maybe
usually
maybe they're
also
one
for-
researcher that's just trying to push
Yeah.
everything uphill, or one research associate that's, supporting chemistry.
Right.
So,
And that's the burnout too, right? Is those are the people who are easy. They finally figured out their job and then realized, oh, I can make more money, or, I can do more at a different place. And I think that's another piece that here we've just lost 3 embedded departmental specialists.
mm,
Piecewise here and piecewise there. One off to Oak Ridge, another one to another department within. To the bigger halves of the have-nots, and also in a small space of, well, I finally got the student to understand and how to run it, and then they graduate.
Yeah.
So I got one last one, which is a little bit of, so I worked on a EDUCAUSE working group on supporting digital humanities, and we talked a little bit about, the army of one versus a dedicated center and building and, those things. And then also talked about some of the methodologies of like a hub and spoke type of thing where there's a strong central, but different things, or a mesh network where there are different pockets and we connect possibly. I want to look at that again and see, update that to see how does that work. This was specifically for digital humanities support, but how does this work on a wider scale of RCD? Those lucky folks that have a reoccurring budget allocation.
I think we're coming up on the end of our
Yep.
time here.
For a long time.
We've got a couple of minutes. If anybody else wants to add anything else, we can stay on if there wants to be further discussion, but I think how we'll kind of end this is Kirk will put all this information together. We might send out maybe kind of a little more detailed survey. I know people get surveyed to death, but we'll figure out if we think that we need more information, but hopefully this was helpful and you can see where you're at amongst your peers. I guess we're all kind of peers, and we'll have some future discussions based on this. I made a list in the call doc that I think we should talk about. Well, I know one of our future upcoming is going to be about the NIH data sharing requirements. So that may not be till January, February. It goes into place in January, but there's been a lot of discussion about that. If you do have interest in that, I believe the data facing did a community call on that. So there might be information out there if you look on our YouTube channel. Let's see, any other cleanup? Next month is SC22 during this time period, I think maybe that we would normally, so we may send out something and just have a in-person meetup there, just kind of an informal. We've done that. We did that pre-COVID and it was kind of fun just to meet people in person. Just maybe just say, hey, stop over here at this booth or whatever it might be. So, and if not, definitely afterwards, we'll do some debriefing about who went, what did they like, what would they like to see again, or, to help people. If anybody has any questions about SC, I've been on the planning committee for the last few years, and it's kind of a big thing to navigate if it's your first time to go, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm sure Rich would as well, or other people in this community. It's worthwhile going, but it's a big week if you go for a week, which our budget isn't allowing us this year. So,
Oh, no.
okay. All right. Anything else, Kirk?
No, that's it for me. I will compile all these things and get them all assembled, and we'll possibly do another survey again. So,
All right.
hope this was helpful.
Anything from the rest of the steering committee? Nope. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon.